The bright blue star hung in the darkness like a jewel. Around it, the planet called New Montana spun slowly. Green fields and silver cities covered its surface. Ships moved between the orbital stations like busy insects. Commander Greg Martinez stood on the bridge of his ship. He watched the scanner readings with worried eyes. For 3 months, his people had been tracking strange signals from deep space. The signals came from ships that did not belong to any human world. "Sir, we have visual contact," said Lieutenant Peters at the scanner station. 3 ships coming from the outer system. They are big. Greg looked at the main screen. The alien ships appeared like metal mountains floating in space. Each one was twice the size of the largest human warship. Their hulls gleamed with a dark purple metal that seemed to drink in the light. "Send a message to Admiral Johnson," Greg said. "Tell him the Zephyrians are here." Far across the galaxy, the Zephyrian War Council met in their great chamber. High Executor Thistleland sat on his crystal throne. His 6 arms moved as he spoke to the gathered commanders. "The scout reports are impossible," he said. His voice echoed in the chamber. "Humans are myths, stories told to frighten children. They do not exist." General Vextar stepped forward. His purple skin showed the scars of many battles. "Executor, our scouts have seen them. They live on a world in the outer arm. They have cities and ships." "Lies," Thistleland snapped. "Or perhaps some new species that looks like the old stories. Real humans would be gods of war. The ancient texts say they could destroy fleets with single ships. These must be weak copies." On New Montana, the Zephyrian ships moved closer. In the lead ship, Captain Cromthek studied the human settlement. He had never seen anything like their technology. The fusion reactors burned too hot. The defensive platforms used energy patterns that made no sense. "Send a landing force," he ordered. "Capture some of these creatures. I want to know what they are." The assault shuttles dropped toward the planet like falling stars. Human defense fighters rose to meet them. The Zephyrians expected an easy fight. Human ships were smaller and fewer. They were wrong. The human fighters moved like living things. They twisted and spun through space in ways that should have killed their pilots. Their weapons did not try to punch through Zephyrian shields. Instead, they found weak points and struck with perfect aim. But the Zephyrians had numbers. Some of their shuttles broke through. They landed in the town of Cedar Falls and began taking prisoners. Paul Jackson was fixing a water pump when the aliens arrived. The engineer looked up to see tall purple creatures with too many arms walking down Main Street. They carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. "Everyone stay calm," Paul called to his neighbors. "Let them do what they want. Help is coming." The Zephyrians were confused by this response. Most species they conquered screamed and ran. These humans just watched them with calm eyes. Some even offered the aliens food and water. Amy Rodriguez was working in the clinic when the soldiers brought wounded Zephyrians inside. The human doctor did not hesitate. She began treating their injuries even though they had just attacked her town. "Why do you help us?" asked one of the wounded aliens. Amy looked up from bandaging his arm. "Because you are hurt. That is what doctors do." The Zephyrian commander could not understand these creatures. They showed no fear. They helped their enemies. They made jokes while being taken prisoner. This was not how a conquered people should act. Captain Cromthek decided to take some humans back to his ship for study. Paul Jackson and Amy Rodriguez were among those chosen. As they walked to the shuttle, Paul turned to Amy. "Do not worry," he said with a smile. "Lisa will be here soon. Then things will get interesting." In space above the planet, something changed. The stars seemed to shift. Then, where empty space had been a moment before, a human warship appeared. The ship was smaller than the Zephyrian vessels. Its hull was gray and covered with weapons. Along its side, words in human letters spelled out UES Defiance. On the bridge of his ship, Captain Cromthek stared at the newcomer. "How did they hide from our scanners?" His science officer studied the readings. "I do not know, Captain. Their technology is unlike anything in our databases." A message came from the human ship. A woman's voice spoke in perfect Zephyrian language. This is Captain Lisa Adams of the United Earth Navy. You have taken our people. Return them now. Captain Crumthek laughed. 1 ship against 3? You are brave but foolish, human. You have 30 seconds to release our people, Lisa Adams said. Her voice was calm but cold. Or we will show you why we stopped believing in fair fights a long time ago. The Zephyrian captain looked at his weapons officer. Are they targeting us? No, sir. They are just sitting there. Then they are bluffing. Prepare to destroy them. 29 seconds passed. On the 30th second, Captain Adams spoke again. Time is up. You should have taken the deal. The human ship did not fire its weapons. Instead, it simply disappeared. Where did they go? Captain Crumthek shouted. The answer came in the form of explosions throughout his ship. The humans had not vanished. They had teleported soldiers directly onto the Zephyrian vessel. The boarders moved through the ship like ghosts, striking at key systems. In the engine room, human soldiers placed strange devices on the reactor controls. In the weapons bay, they did something to the targeting computers. On the bridge, smoke began to pour from damaged systems. Sir, all our weapons are offline, reported the weapons officer. The engines are shutting down. Captain Crumthek had fought in 50 battles. He had never seen anything like this. The humans had taken his ship apart from the inside without killing a single Zephyrian. The voice of Captain Adams came over the ship's speakers. Captain Crumthek, this is your first and last warning. The next time you threaten human civilians, we will not be so gentle. Now, my people. The Zephyrian captain had no choice. His ship was helpless. His weapons were dead. With shaking hands, he gave the order to release the human prisoners. As Paul Jackson and Amy Rodriguez returned to their shuttle, Paul grinned at his captors. I told you things would get interesting. Lisa does not like it when people take her friends. Back on New Montana, the rescued humans were welcomed home. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would return with more ships. The real fight was yet to come. In his command center, Greg Martinez sent another message to Admiral Johnson. First contact is complete, sir. The Zephyrians know we exist now, and they are going to be very, very angry. High above the planet, Captain Lisa Adams stood on her bridge and watched the damaged alien ships limp away into deep space. She knew they would be back, and when they came, they would bring friends. Set course for the rendezvous point, she told her navigator. It is time to call in the fleet. The news of the human encounter spread through the Zephyrian Confederation like wildfire. In the great capital world of Zix Prime, emergency meetings filled the war chambers. High Executor Theus Allen could no longer deny what his scouts had found. If these creatures are truly the humans from the old stories, he said to his war council, then we face our greatest challenge. But I do not believe it. The legends speak of gods. What we found were simple beings with lucky tricks. General Vextar stood before the massive star map. Red dots showed Zephyrian worlds stretching across half the galaxy. One tiny blue dot marked human space in a distant arm. They disabled 3 of our ships without firing a shot, Vextar said. That was not luck, Executor. That was skill. Then we will use overwhelming force, Theus Allen declared. Send 50 ships to this human world. Crush them quickly before they can spread their tricks to other species. The Zephyrian war fleet gathered at the edge of their space. 50 massive warships, each one a fortress in space. General Vextar commanded from his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. He had fought rebels and pirates across the galaxy. Humans would be no different. On New Montana, life continued as normal despite the coming storm. Dr. Helen Brooks worked in her laboratory, studying recordings of the Zephyrian prisoners. As a xenobiologist, she found their psychology fascinating. They have never lost a major battle, she told Colonel Jake Morris as they reviewed the data. Their entire culture is built on the idea that they are the strongest species in the galaxy. Jake Morris was a soldier who understood war. He had fought in the asteroid mines of Titan and the ice caves of Europa. He knew how dangerous overconfidence could be. That makes them predictable, he said. They will come at us straight on, expecting their numbers to win the day. What about their technology? Helen asked. Their ships are larger than ours. Jake smiled. Bigger is not always better, Doc. Sometimes it just makes a bigger target. In space above New Montana, Captain Lisa Adams waited with the UES Defiance. Her ship hung in the shadow of the largest moon, invisible to long-range scanners. Her crew was ready for what was coming. "Captain, we have incoming signals," reported her communications officer. 50 ships dropping out of hyperspace at the system edge. Lisa looked at her tactical display. Red icons filled the screen like a swarm of angry insects. Any normal fleet commander would be terrified. Lisa Adams was not normal. "Signal Admiral Johnson," she said. "Tell him the party is about to start." The Zephyrian fleet moved toward New Montana in perfect formation. General Vextar watched the human world grow larger on his screens. His scanners showed only one small ship defending the planet. "They send one vessel against 50, he said to his bridge crew. "These humans are either very brave or very stupid." "Perhaps both, General," replied his weapons officer. "Open a channel to the human ship," Vextar ordered. Captain Adams's face appeared on the main screen. She looked calm, almost bored. This annoyed the Zephyrian general. "I am General Vextar of the Zephyrian War Fleet," he announced. "You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." Lisa tilted her head slightly. "That is an interesting offer, General, but I have a counter-proposal. You will turn your ships around and leave this system, or I will be forced to embarrass you in front of your entire fleet." The Zephyrian bridge crew looked shocked. One small ship threatening 50? It was beyond belief. "You cannot be serious," Vextar said. "Oh, I am very serious," Lisa replied. "You see, we humans have a saying. It is not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. You are about to learn what that means." The transmission ended. General Vextar stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his weapons officer. "Destroy them," he ordered. 50 Zephyrian ships opened fire at once. Energy beams and missile volleys filled space where the UES Defiance had been. When the light faded, the human ship was gone. "Target destroyed," reported the weapons officer. "No," said the scanner operator, his voice uncertain. "I still have them on sensors. They are everywhere." The human ship seemed to be in 10 places at once. It appeared behind one Zephyrian vessel, fired a single shot that knocked out its engines, then vanished before return fire could reach it. It struck another ship's weapon systems, leaving it helpless. Then another. "How are they moving so fast?" Vextar demanded. His science officer studied the readings with growing alarm. "General, they are not using conventional engines. Their ship seems to be folding space around itself. It is technology we do not understand." Dr. Helen Brooks had designed the Defiance's new drive system. By creating tiny tiers in spacetime, the ship could step from one location to another instantly. It was dangerous technology that pushed the laws of physics to their limits. But humans had always been good at dangerous things. "Target their command ship," Vextar ordered. "All vessels concentrate fire on my position." It was a desperate move. If the Zephyrians could not hit the human ship when it appeared, they would force it to come to them. Even humans could not resist the chance to strike at the enemy commander. Lisa Adams saw the trap immediately. "They want us to attack their flagship," she told her crew. "So let us give them what they want." The UES Defiance materialized directly above the Eternal Conquest. But instead of firing weapons, it did something the Zephyrians had never seen before. It opened its cargo bay and dropped thousands of small objects toward the enemy ship. "What are those things?" Vextar asked. The objects struck the Eternal Conquest's hull and attached themselves like metal parasites. Then they began to work. Each one was a tiny robot programmed to disrupt Zephyrian technology. They crawled across the ship's surface, finding power conduits and computer nodes. Within minutes, the mighty flagship was dead in space. Weapons offline. Engines silent. Even the lights went out. "This is impossible," Vextar whispered. On the surface of New Montana, Colonel Jake Morris watched the battle through his command center's screens. Sergeant Tony Garcia and his special operations team were ready for the next phase. "Looks like Lisa is having fun up there," Jake said. "Time for us to join the party." The Zephyrian fleet was in chaos. Ships fired in all directions, trying to hit the human vessel that appeared and vanished like a ghost. In their panic, they began hitting each other. 3 Zephyrian ships were disabled by friendly fire. "Recall all fighters," one captain ordered. "Form defensive positions around the command ship." But the command ship could not respond. General Vextar sat in darkness on his bridge, listening to his fleet fall apart over the radio. In 30 minutes of battle, the humans had crippled 15 Zephyrian vessels without destroying a single one. That was the message. The humans could have killed them all, but they chose not to. They were showing mercy while demonstrating their power. It was a lesson that chilled the Zephyrian general to his core. A new voice came over the fleet's communication system. It was calm and professional, with the authority of long experience. "This is Admiral Kane Johnson of the Human Defense Fleet. General Vextar, I believe you and I need to have a conversation." Vextar looked around his dark bridge. His weapons were dead. His ship was helpless. Half his fleet was drifting in space, their crews alive but their vessels disabled. "What do you want?" he asked. "Right now I want you to listen very carefully," Admiral Johnson replied. "You came here believing you could intimidate us with numbers. That was your first mistake. Your second mistake was thinking we would fight. Fair. We do not fight fair, General. We fight to win." Through his viewports, Vextar could see other ships appearing at the edge of the system. Human vessels, smaller than his own but radiating deadly purpose. They had been hiding in the asteroid field waiting for the right moment. "How many ships do you have?" Vextar asked. "Enough," Admiral Johnson said. "The question is, General, how many of your ships do you want to take home intact? Because right now that number is entirely up to you." General Vextar had been a warrior for 60 years. He had conquered star systems and broken enemy fleets. But he had never faced an enemy like this. The humans did not fight like any species he knew. They were patient, clever, and utterly ruthless when necessary. "What are your terms?" he asked. "Simple. You will leave this system immediately. You will report to your superiors that humanity is not to be trifled with. And you will remember that we could have destroyed your entire fleet but chose not to. Do not make us regret that choice." The Zephyrian general looked at his tactical display. Red icons marked his damaged ships. Blue icons showed the growing human fleet. The numbers were becoming less favorable by the minute. "Very well," he said. "Finally, we will withdraw." "Wise choice," Admiral Johnson replied. "Oh, and General, when you make your report, be sure to mention that this was just a small taste of what we can do. What you have seen today is nothing compared to what we are capable of when we are truly angry." As the battered Zephyrian fleet limped away from New Montana, Admiral Johnson stood on his command bridge and watched them go. Captain Adams brought the Defiance alongside his flagship. "Think they learned their lesson?" she asked over the communication link. Kane Johnson shook his head. "No. They will be back with more ships and a bigger attitude. But next time, they will be more careful." "Good," Lisa said with a grim smile. "Careful enemies make fewer mistakes, and we need them to make one big mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "The kind where they bring their entire fleet." The defeat at New Montana sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian Confederation. High Executor Thaisalon paced in his war chamber, his 6 arms moving in agitation. The reports from General Vextar were impossible to believe, yet they came from his most trusted commander. 50 ships, Thaisalon said to the assembled war council. 50 of our finest warships defeated by a handful of humans. How is this possible? War leader Kethmore stepped forward. He was younger than the other commanders, but his tactical mind was sharp. "Executor, perhaps we have underestimated these creatures. The ancient texts speak of humans as beings who war constantly among themselves. If this is true, they have learned lessons we have not." "What lessons could possibly matter against superior numbers?" Thaisalon demanded. "The lessons of the desperate," Kethmore replied quietly. "Those who fight for survival learn to be creative. We have ruled for so long that we have forgotten how to adapt." The High Executor's eyes blazed with anger. "Then we will show them the true might of the Confederation. Summon the Great Armada. 500 ships, every vessel we can spare. We will crush these humans completely. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Kane Johnson received the intelligence reports. The Zephyrians were mobilizing their entire fleet. It was exactly what he had hoped for. "Sir," said Captain Ryan Clark, his intelligence officer, "are you certain about this plan? 500 ships is a lot, even for us." Kane looked at the star charts covering the walls. Red dots marked Zephyrian positions across the galaxy. Blue dots showed human colonies, small and scattered but growing stronger each year. "Ryan, what is the first rule of human warfare?" Kane asked. "Never fight fair when you can win dirty," Ryan replied. "And the second rule? Never let the enemy choose the time and place of battle." Kane nodded. "The Zephyrians think they are coming to destroy us. Instead, they are coming to the place where we are strongest. Chief Engineer Susan White has been working for 3 years to prepare for this moment." In the asteroid belt around New Montana, the human fleet gathered. 12 ships, each one unique and deadly. The UES Vengeance, commanded by Captain Ryan Clark, bristled with new weapons designed by Susan White. The UES Retribution carried experimental fighters that could survive in conditions that would kill any other pilot. Chief Engineer Susan White floated in zero gravity inside the massive construction facility hidden in the largest asteroid. Around her, robotic arms assembled components that defied conventional physics. Her fusion reactors used controlled black holes to generate power. Her weapons fired packets of compressed space-time. Her defensive systems existed partially in parallel dimensions. "How much longer until the Cascade Protocol is ready?" Admiral Johnson asked over the communication link. Susan consulted her displays. 12 hours, sir. The quantum linkage systems are almost online. Once activated, our 12 ships will function as a single organism." "And the psychological warfare package?" "Captain Clark has been working on that personally. I think the Zephyrians are going to find it very educational." Lieutenant Carlos Rivera sat in the cockpit of his experimental fighter, running pre-flight checks. The craft was barely large enough for a human pilot, but it packed weapons and defenses that would make a cruiser jealous. The G-forces it could pull should have turned him into paste, but human engineering had found ways around that problem. "All pilots, this is Rivera," he said over the squadron frequency. "Remember, these aliens have never seen anything like our birds. Use that. Make them think we are magic." His wingman, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, laughed over the radio. "Magic is just science they do not understand yet. And boy, are they going to be confused." The Great Armada arrived at New Montana in a display of overwhelming force. 500 Zephyrian warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Each vessel was a city in space, bristling with weapons and carrying thousands of warriors. Supreme, Fleet Admiral Zixthara commanded from her flagship, the Crown of Empire. She had led the Confederation's fleets for 2 centuries, conquering dozens of star systems. Never had she brought such overwhelming force against a single enemy. "Report," she ordered as her ships took position around the human world. "Long range. Scanners detect 12 human vessels in the asteroid belt," her tactical officer reported. "They appear to be the same ships that defeated General Vextar's force." Zixthara studied the tactical display. 12 ships against 500. The humans were either completely insane or they knew something she did not. "Have they responded to our presence?" she asked. "Yes, Admiral. We are receiving a transmission from their flagship." Admiral Johnson's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired, like a man who had seen too much war, but his eyes were hard and determined. "Supreme Fleet Admiral Zixthara," he said, "I am Admiral Kane Johnson of the Human Defense Fleet. I assume you are here to avenge your previous defeat." Zixthara was surprised that he knew her name. Human intelligence was better than she had thought. "I am here to end this threat to the Confederation," she replied. "Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Johnson smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Admiral, before we begin, there is something you should see. Captain Clark, begin the transmission." The main screen changed to show images that made the Zephyrian bridge crew gasp in shock. Human cities burning, massive explosions tearing apart space stations, ships ramming each other in desperate combat. This is human history. Johnson's voice continued over the images. For thousands of years, we have fought wars that would horrify your species. We have perfected the art of killing our own kind. Do you really think your fleets will pose a challenge we have not already faced? The images shifted to show human technology. Weapons that tore holes in reality. Ships that moved faster than light by folding space around themselves. Soldiers who fought in conditions that would kill most organic life. War leader Kethamore watched from his command ship and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The humans were not just warriors, they were survivors of conflicts that made Zephyrian battles look like children's games. This is psychological warfare, Zixathera said to her crew. They are trying to frighten us with images and stories. But, even as she spoke, she could see the doubt in her officer's eyes. The humans had already defeated one Zephyrian fleet with impossible tactics. What if these images were real? Admiral, came Johnson's voice again, I am going to give you one chance to withdraw, not because I fear your numbers, but because I remember what it feels like to lose friends in pointless battles. Leave now, and you can all go home to your families. Zixathera felt her pride surge. No one threatened the Great Armada and lived. To tell about it, open fire, she ordered. All ships, maximum firepower, destroy them. 500 Zephyrian warships opened fire at once. Energy beams and missile volleys filled space like a deadly light show. The firepower was enough to crack a moon in half. When the light faded, the human ships were gone. Where are they? Zixathera demanded. Unknown, Admiral, her scanner operator replied. They simply vanished. The answer came in the form of explosions throughout the Zephyrian fleet. The human ships had not been destroyed. They had teleported into the middle of the enemy formation and were now attacking from within. Lieutenant Rivera's fighter squadron struck like angry wasps. Their ships were too small for the Zephyrian weapons to target effectively, but their own weapons could disable systems on the massive enemy vessels. They moved in impossible patterns using G-forces that should have killed their pilots. How are they still alive in those acceleration fields? Asked Zixathera's science officer. Unknown, Admiral. Their technology appears to violate several laws of physics. Captain Clark's psychological warfare continued. Human voices filled the Zephyrian communication channels, speaking in perfect Zephyrian language. Your shields cannot stop us, the voices said. Your weapons cannot hit us. We are death itself, come to teach you humility. The Zephyrian fleet began to panic. Ships fired in all directions, hitting their own vessels as often as they hit empty space. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos. Then Chief Engineer White activated the Cascade Protocol. The 12 human ships suddenly blazed with energy as their quantum systems linked together. They became a single entity with 12 bodies sharing power, information, and tactical consciousness. The combined intelligence could think faster than any organic mind and react to threats before they fully developed. Supreme Fleet Admiral. Zixathera watched her mighty armada being torn apart by an enemy that refused to follow any known rules of warfare. Ships that appeared and vanished at will. Fighters that performed impossible maneuvers. Weapons that seemed to bend the laws of reality. Admiral, her communications officer called out, we are receiving another transmission from the human flagship. Admiral, Johnson appeared on screen again. Behind him, displays showed the tactical situation. Half the Zephyrian fleet was already disabled or destroyed. Admiral Zixathera, he said calmly, this is your final warning. Surrender now or face the consequences of your arrogance. We have shown you mercy so far. Do not test our patience further. The Supreme Fleet Admiral looked around her bridge. Officers who had served. The wreckage of the Great Armada drifted through space like broken dreams. Supreme Fleet Admiral Zixathera stood on her command bridge, watching rescue shuttles move between the disabled ships. In 2 hours of combat, the most powerful fleet in galactic history had been reduced to floating scrap metal. Her flagship, the Crown of Empire, was one of the few vessels still under power, but even it bore the scars of human weapons. Strange burn marks covered the hull where energy beams had struck. Some of the damage seemed to twist reality itself, creating holes that led to empty space. "Casualty report," she ordered. Her aide consulted his datapad with shaking hands. 473 ships disabled or destroyed. Crew casualties are surprisingly light, Admiral. The humans seem to target ship systems rather than life support. Zixathera nodded grimly. Even in victory, the humans showed a kind of mercy that confused her. Any other species would have slaughtered the defeated fleet. Instead, the humans had left her people alive but helpless. "Admiral," her communications officer called, "the human flagship is requesting permission to come aboard." She straightened her uniform. "Permission granted. I will meet with their commander in the main conference room." Admiral Kane Johnson came aboard with a small honor guard. The humans looked unremarkable compared to the tall, six-armed Zephyrians. But there was something in their eyes that made even veteran warriors step aside. They moved with the confidence of beings who had faced death many times and lived to tell about it. "Admiral Zixthara," Johnson said with a formal nod. "I am sorry we had to meet under these circumstances." She studied his weathered face. "You do not look like a conqueror, human. You look tired." "I am tired," Johnson admitted. "Tired of war, tired of fighting, tired of watching good people die for stupid reasons. But sometimes war is the only language bullies understand." They sat across from each other in the conference room. Between them lay the truth that would reshape the galaxy. The Zephyrian Confederation, supreme rulers for 1,000 years, had been defeated by a species they thought was mythical. "How?" Zixathera asked simply. Johnson leaned back in his chair. "How did we win, or how do we exist at all?" "Both. We exist because we are survivors, Admiral. My people have faced extinction dozens of times in our history. Asteroid impacts, ice ages, plagues, and wars that consumed entire continents. Each time we adapted. Each time we learned. And each time we grew stronger." He gestured to a holographic display that showed human history. Images of ancient battles, technological advances, and desperate struggles against impossible odds. "Your species has ruled the galaxy for a millennium," Johnson continued. "You have grown soft because you have had no real challenges. We remained hard because we have always faced challenges." Dr. Rachel Torres entered the room carrying a data tablet. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but her words carried the weight of scientific truth. "Admiral Zixathara," she said, "we have been studying your people for years. Your psychology, your tactics, your technology. We know how you think because we have made it our business to know." The Zephyrian admiral felt a chill run through her. "You have been spying on us." "We have been preparing," Johnson corrected. "The moment we discovered that the galaxy contained an aggressive empire, we began planning for this day. Every battle you fought, every world you conquered, we watched and learned." Major Ashley Davis stepped forward. She was a Marine commander, with the scars of ground combat on her hands and face. "Your soldiers are brave," she said to Zixthera, "but they have never fought an enemy that adapts. In every battle you use the same tactics because they have always worked. We change our tactics constantly because we have to." Captain Danny Moore joined the conversation from his position near the door. His ship, the UES Retribution, had led the assault on the Zephyrian Center formation. "Your ships are impressive," he said. "Large, powerful, well-armed. But they are designed to fight other ships like themselves. Our vessels are designed to fight whatever we encounter. Adaptability over raw power." Zixthara looked around the room at these unremarkable humans. Individually, they seemed weak compared to Zephyrian warriors. Together, they represented something her species had never encountered. Absolute determination combined with tactical brilliance. "What happens now?" she asked. Johnson stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, human ships moved among the wreckage, providing medical aid and rescue services to the defeated enemy. "Now you have a choice, Gyaon," he said. "You can report back to your High Executor and tell him the truth, that humanity exists, that we are not going away, and that the age of Zephyrian expansion is over. Or you can lie and force us to prove our point again. And if I tell the truth, what then?" "Then we talk. Equals speaking to equals, About how to share this galaxy peacefully. Zixathara laughed bitterly. Equals? You have just destroyed the greatest fleet in galactic history, with 12 ships, Johnson pointed out. Admiral, this fleet represented perhaps 10% of our total military capability. Earth alone maintains over 1,000 vessels. Our colonies throughout local space have weapons that make today's demonstration look like a training exercise. The Zephyrian admiral felt her world shift beneath her feet. The humans were not showing off their full strength. They were holding back. Why? She asked. Why reveal yourselves now? Why not remain hidden in your distant arm of the galaxy? Dr. Torres answered. Because your empire was spreading toward our space. Because you were enslaving species that could not defend themselves. Because someone had to draw a line and say, enough. Johnson returned to his seat. Admiral, we do not want to rule the galaxy. We have tried ruling ourselves and we are terrible at it. But we will not allow any species to dominate all others. That includes us. Chief Engineer Susan White's voice came over the ship's communication system. Admiral Johnson, the quantum resonance cascade is ready for final demonstration. Johnson nodded to Zixathara. Would you like to see what we were really capable of today? Against her better judgment, the Zephyrian admiral nodded. The lights dimmed as energy flowed through the human ships. 12 vessels suddenly blazed like new stars as their systems synchronized. Power readings climbed beyond anything in Zephyrian science. The combined fleet became something greater than the sum of its parts. What you saw today was us operating at 30% efficiency, Johnson explained. When fully linked, our ships can share consciousness, processing power, and energy systems. They become a single organism with 12 bodies. Space around them began to change. Reality itself seemed to bend as the human ships demonstrated their true capabilities. Weapons that could tear holes in space-time. Defenses that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Technology that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. This is impossible, Zixathara whispered. No, said Susan White as she entered the room. This is engineering. When you face extinction often enough, you learn to push the boundaries of what is possible. The demonstration ended, and normal space returned. But the message was clear. The humans had been playing with their enemies, showing only a fraction of their true power. Your people speak of humans as myths, Johnson said. Legends of warriors who could destroy fleets with single ships. Today you learned that the myths were not exaggerated, they were understatements. Zixathara sat in silence for a long moment, processing what she had seen. Her entire understanding of the galaxy had been shattered in a single day. What message do you want me to carry to the High Executor? She asked finally. Johnson stood and extended his hand in the human gesture of respect. Tell him that humanity offers the Confederation a choice. Peace and cooperation, or war and destruction. The choice is his, but he should choose wisely. And if he chooses war? Then we will end it, Johnson said simply. Quickly, decisively, and permanently. We have no desire to conquer your worlds, Admiral. But we will not hesitate to destroy your ability to threaten others. As the meeting ended and the human delegation prepared to leave, Zixathara called out to Johnson, Admiral, may I ask you something? Of course. Do you truly believe your species is superior to ours? Johnson paused at the doorway. No, Admiral. I believe we are different. You grew strong through conquest, we grew strong through survival. Either path is inherently better. But survival makes you adaptable in ways that conquest does not. And that adaptability is what defeated us today? That adaptability is what will keep us alive tomorrow, Johnson replied. The question is whether your people can learn to adapt as well. Because the galaxy is changing, Admiral. The age of single-species dominance is ending. The age of cooperation is beginning. As the human shuttle departed, Supreme Fleet Admiral Zixathara stood alone on her bridge. Around her, the wreckage of the Great Armada served as a monument to Zephyrian arrogance. For the first time in 1,000 years, her people had encountered beings who were not only unafraid of them, but capable of defeating them utterly. The myths had been real all along. And now the gods of war had awakened. The journey back to Zix Prime took 3 weeks. Supreme Fleet Admiral Zixathara spent those weeks writing her report and preparing for the most difficult conversation of her career. The remnants of the Great Armada limped home in shame, their crews struggling to understand how they had been so thoroughly defeated. High Executor Thaisalon waited in his crystal throne room, surrounded by the War Council. Reports of the disaster had reached him through faster communication channels, but he refused to believe them. The Great Armada could not have been defeated by 12 ships. It was impossible. When Zixathara entered the chamber, her uniform bore no decorations of victory. Her face showed the weight of absolute defeat. "Report," Thaisalon commanded. "The Great Armada has been destroyed," she said simply. "Of 500 ships, fewer than 50 remain operational. The humans defeated us completely." The chamber erupted in angry voices. War leaders and fleet commanders shouted questions and denials. How could this have happened? What kind of weapons did the humans possess? How many ships did they really have? Elder philosopher Nimthis raised one ancient hand for silence. The old scholar was older than the Confederation itself, keeper of the ancient texts that most Zephyrians ignored. "I warned you," he said in a voice like winter wind. The old writings spoke clearly of the humans. "Beware the species that wars with itself, for when it turns its attention to others, the galaxy trembles." We thought these were myths. They were prophecies. Thaisalon's eyes blazed with fury. "You speak of legends and stories. I want facts. How many ships do these humans really have?" Zixathara consulted her datapad. "According to their Admiral Johnson, Earth alone maintains over 1,000 vessels. Their colonies possess weapons that make our greatest ships look primitive." "Then, we mobilize everything," Thaisalon declared. "Every ship, every warrior, every weapon in the Confederation. We will crush them with overwhelming force." "Executor," Zixathara said quietly. "You do not understand. They were holding back. What we faced was perhaps 30% of their capability. When they demonstrated their full power, they bent reality itself to their will." The war chamber fell silent. Even the most aggressive commanders understood the implications. If the humans had been restraining themselves, then the Confederation faced an enemy beyond their ability to defeat. A new voice interrupted the discussion. Ambassador Jennifer Ross entered the chamber flanked by 2 human Marines. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but she carried herself with the authority of someone who spoke for a powerful nation. "High Executor Thaisalon," she said in perfect Zephyrian. "I am Ambassador Jennifer Ross of the United Earth Government. I come with terms for peace." The Zephyrian leader's pride flared. "How dare you enter my throne room without permission? Guards, arrest these creatures." The guards moved forward, but something in the humans' calm confidence made them hesitate. They had heard the reports from the Great Armada. These beings had defeated the mightiest fleet in galactic history. Perhaps it was wise to listen. "Executor," Zixathara said, "I suggest we hear what they have to say." Ambassador Ross placed a data crystal on the conference table. "These are our terms for ending hostilities. I suggest you read them carefully." General Chris Thompson, who had accompanied the ambassador, spoke for the first time. "Executor, our forces are currently occupying 17 of your military installations throughout the Confederation. Your choice is whether this occupation becomes permanent." Thaisalon stared at the humans in disbelief. 17 installations? Impossible. "Our defenses would have detected any invasion force," Thompson smiled grimly. "Your defenses were designed to stop conventional fleets. We did not use conventional tactics. Captain Alex Turner's intelligence teams have been inside your territory for months, identifying targets and weaknesses." The data crystal displayed a holographic map of Zephyrian space. Red markers showed human-controlled installations scattered throughout the Empire, shipyards, communication centers, and military academies, all flying human flags. "You have been conquered," Ambassador Ross said gently, "but we prefer to call it liberation. The species you have enslaved are now free. Your expansion has ended. The question is whether the Confederation itself survives." Elder Nimthis, studied the holographic display with ancient eyes. How long have you been watching us? Since you first appeared in our intelligence reports 40 years ago, Ambassador, Ross replied. We have been preparing for this day since we learned of your existence. The old philosopher nodded slowly. And now you offer us terms instead of destruction. Why? Because, said General Thompson, Admiral Johnson was right. We are terrible at ruling people. We have no desire to govern your worlds or control your people. We simply want the aggression to stop. Ambassador Ross activated another hologram. This one showed the proposed galactic government structure, a council of species, each with equal representation, no single race holding dominance over others. The Galactic Council, she explained. Every intelligent species gets a voice. Decisions are made by consensus, not conquest. Trade replaces warfare. Cooperation replaces domination. Tissa Allen laughed bitterly. And what of the Confederation? What of our 1,000 years of rule? Your rule ends today, Thompson said bluntly. But your people can have a future if you choose wisely. The alternative is the complete dismantling of your military and the occupation of your core worlds. The High Executor looked around his war chamber at the faces of his commanders. These were beings who had never known defeat, never imagined that their empire could fall. Now they faced a choice between adaptation and extinction. War leader Kethmore stepped forward. Of all the commanders, he had been most willing to acknowledge human capabilities. Executor, he said, perhaps it is time to consider new paths. Our old ways have led us to this defeat. Maybe these humans offer something better. You would surrender our entire civilization? Tissa Allen demanded. I would save our people. Kethmore replied. There is no shame in learning from a superior enemy. Captain Alex Turner spoke from his position near the door. High Executor, our intelligence indicates that several of your subject species are already in rebellion. The news of your defeat has spread quickly. You can either be part of the solution or watch your empire tear itself apart. Ambassador Ross touched the holographic controls again. The display now showed Zephyrian worlds where former slaves were declaring independence. Dozens of species, freed from Confederation control, were building their own governments. The galaxy is changing, she said. The age of empires is ending. The age of cooperation is beginning. You can be part of that future, or you can cling to a past that no longer exists. Elder Nymphus approached the human ambassador. Despite his great age, his mind remained sharp. Tell me, human, he said, what guarantees do we have that your people will not simply become the new overlords? Ambassador Ross met his gaze steadily. None except our word and our history. We have proven that we can destroy your empire. We choose instead to offer partnership. Judge us by our actions, not our promises. The old philosopher nodded. Wise words. And if the executor refuses your terms? General Thompson answered. Then we implement option 7. Complete military occupation, dismantling of the Confederation, government and direct administration of Zephyrian space until a stable democratic system can be established. How long would that take? Nymphus asked. 50 to 100 years, Thompson replied. However long it takes to build institutions that serve the people instead of the state. The weight of the decision pressed down on High Executor Tissa Allen. His empire was gone, destroyed in a single day by beings he had thought were myths. His choices were limited: cooperate with the humans, or watch his people suffer under occupation. What happens to me? He asked finally. That depends on your people, Ambassador Ross said. If they choose to keep you as their leader in the new system, that is their decision. If they choose someone else, that is also their decision. Democracy means choice, Executor, something your empire never offered. Supreme Fleet Admiral Zixathara had remained silent throughout the negotiations. Now she spoke. I have fought the humans, she said. I have seen their power and their mercy. They could have slaughtered my entire fleet, but they chose not to. They could have executed the survivors, but instead they provided medical aid. Perhaps it is time to trust them. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The Confederation was broken, its military defeated, its empire collapsing. The only choice was between cooperation and destruction. In the end, High Executor Thissa Allen signed the Galactic Accords. The document established the new government structure, guaranteed rights for all species, and formally ended the age of Zephyrian dominance. As the signing ceremony concluded, Elder Nimthus approached Admiral Johnson, who had arrived for the historic moment. "Admiral," the old philosopher said, "I have one final question. The ancient texts spoke of humans as gods of war. Today I see that the myths were true, but they also spoke of humans as builders of peace. Is that myth true as well?" Kane Johnson looked out the great windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere among them, former slaves were building new societies. Former enemies were learning to cooperate. The galaxy was healing from 1,000 years of oppression. "Elder," he said, "that is a myth we are still working to make true, but we have